It all started not with a bang, but with a question. In the year 2020, something shifted in the halls of power in Washington, D.C. For decades, stories of flying saucers and strange lights in the sky were treated as jokes or science fiction. They were things you saw in movies, not things that serious people in government talked about. But then, they started talking. The United States Congress, a place where laws are made and big decisions happen, held hearings about UFOs. They didn't call them UFOs though. They used a new, more serious name, Unidentified Aerial Phenomena, or UAPs. This was a signal to everyone that the world was about to change. These hearings were a very big deal. High-ranking officials from the Pentagon, the heart of the U.S. military, stood before the world and spoke. They admitted that their pilots, the best in the world, were seeing things in the sky that they could not explain. These objects were not just blips on a radar screen. They were real, physical craft that moved in ways that seemed to break the laws of physics as we know them. They could turn on a dime, accelerate to incredible speeds without a sonic boom, and disappear in the blink of an eye. The officials said these sightings were happening more and more often, and they considered it a serious matter of national security. Imagine being a teenager watching the news that night. For your whole life, you were told that we were alone in the universe, or at least that no one had ever visited us. Suddenly the most powerful government on Earth was saying, "We don't know what these are." It was a moment that sent a ripple of excitement and fear across the globe. People started looking up at the sky a little differently. Every strange light, every fast-moving dot, was no longer just a satellite or an airplane. It was a mystery, a question mark hanging over all of our heads. The conversation had started and it could not be stopped. The reason these hearings were so important was that they opened the door. They made it okay for pilots, for scientists, and for everyday people to talk about what they had seen without fear of being laughed at. It was the government itself admitting that there was something real to investigate. This official curiosity paved the way for what was to come next. It created a global hunger for answers. The world was leaning in, listening closely, and waiting for the next piece of the puzzle. They would not have to wait for long, because the sky was about to deliver an answer more shocking than anyone could have imagined. As the government began to take UAPs more seriously, more secrets started to come out. The officials who spoke at the hearings shared details that were truly mind-boggling. They described objects shaped like tic-tacs and cubes, flying silently through the air with no visible means of propulsion. There were no wings, no engines, no exhaust fumes, nothing that our own technology uses to fly. These craft were often seen near sensitive military bases and even nuclear weapon sites, as if they were watching us, studying our most powerful and dangerous creations. This was not just a scientific curiosity, it was a potential threat that no one understood. The pilots who saw these things firsthand told incredible stories. They spoke of being on routine training missions and suddenly finding themselves flying alongside an object that could outmaneuver their advanced fighter jets with ease. In some cases, the UAPs seemed to react to the pilots' thoughts or movements almost as if they were intelligent. These were not random events. They were controlled, precise, and displayed a level of technology that was far beyond anything on Earth. The government reports confirmed it. The phenomena were real, and they were not ours. This admission sent chills down the spines of leaders and citizens alike. One of the most startling revelations was about the sheer number of sightings. For years, only a few famous cases were known to the public, but the government revealed that there had been hundreds, if not thousands, of encounters that were kept secret. They had videos, radar data, and eyewitness testimony from the most credible observers you could find. They released a few of these videos to the public showing blurry, gray objects moving in impossible ways. Seeing it for yourself, even on a grainy video, made it all feel terrifyingly real. The world was no longer just hearing stories, it was seeing the evidence. This slow drip of information created a new kind of global conversation. Scientists, engineers, and thinkers from all over the world started to debate what these UAPs could be. Were they secret drones from another country? Were they some kind of natural phenomenon we didn't understand yet? Or were they something else entirely, something not from this world? The evidence pointed towards the last option, but it was a conclusion so massive, so world-changing that most people were afraid to say it out loud. The secrets in the sky were becoming too big to ignore, and a single event was about to tear the veil of secrecy away for good. In April of 2025, the questions turned into answers in the most dramatic way possible. In the vast, quiet emptiness of a desert in the American Southwest, something fell from the sky. It wasn't a meteor or a piece of space junk, it was a craft, and it crashed with a force that shook the ground for miles. The US military was there within minutes, locking down the area and creating a perimeter of secrecy. But in the age of satellites and social media, you can't hide something that big for long. Whispers of the crash spread like wildfire, and the world held its breath, waiting for the truth. What the military found at the crash site was beyond comprehension. The wreckage was made of a smooth metallic material that was impossibly light, yet stronger than any substance known to man. There were no seams, no rivets, no bolts. The craft seemed to be molded from a single piece of material, with a design that was both beautiful and utterly alien. Inside the broken shell of the vehicle, the technology was even more bewildering. There were no wires, no circuits, no familiar components. It was a puzzle that our best scientists could not even begin to solve. It was clear this was not made by human hands, but the most staggering discovery was not the technology, it was life. Inside the wreckage, the recovery teams found the body of its pilot. It was not human. The being was small and frail-looking, with large eyes and a complex physiology unlike anything on Earth. Medical teams and biologists were flown in under the highest security to study the body. What they found was a breakthrough that changed biology forever. The being had a DNA structure, but it was far more complex than our own. It was undeniably life, but it was not from our branch of the evolutionary tree. We were officially not alone. The news was too big to keep secret. Facing immense pressure from the public and other world governments, the President of the United States went on television and told the world the truth. An object of non-terrestrial origin had crashed, and its pilot had been recovered. The announcement caused a global shockwave. For the first time in history, humanity had proof. The stories, the sightings, the government hearings, it all led to this moment. The mystery of the UAPs was solved. They were spacecraft from another world. But this incredible discovery also opened up a terrifying new question. Were they friendly? The discovery of the crashed ship and its pilot sent the scientific community into a frenzy of activity. Governments around the world knew they couldn't handle this alone. They quickly formed a special group to lead the investigation. In the United States, it was called the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force, or UAPTF. This wasn't just a military group. It was a collection of the brightest minds on the planet, astrophysicists, biologists, engineers, and language experts. Their job was to study the alien technology and the non-human DNA, and to try and figure out who these visitors were and what they wanted from us. The task force got to work immediately, studying the wreckage from the desert crash. The alien metal was a miracle of engineering. It could repair itself when damaged and seemed to respond to certain frequencies of sound. The ship's power source was a tiny glowing orb that produced more energy than a nuclear power plant, with no heat and no radiation. Our scientists were like toddlers trying to understand a supercomputer. Every new discovery only showed them how far behind we were. They realized that the beings who built this ship were likely thousands, if not millions of years more advanced than we were. The biological team had an even more challenging task. They analyzed the non-human DNA and found that it was incredibly efficient and resilient. It had built-in protection against radiation and disease, things that still plague humanity. The alien being's brain was also a marvel. It was structured in a way that suggested it could process information millions of times faster than a human brain. It even had parts that our scientists couldn't identify, hinting at senses or abilities we can't even dream of, perhaps telepathy or the ability to perceive other dimensions. It was a humbling and frightening discovery. As the UAPTF dug deeper, they started connecting the dots between the crashed ship and the hundreds of other UAP sightings. They concluded that Earth had been visited and observed for a very long time, possibly for centuries. The visitors weren't just passing by, they were studying us. This new understanding changed everything. The science of UAPs was no longer about proving they exist. It was now about survival. The task force's new mission became urgent. Figure out the visitors' intentions before it was too late. The world watched and waited, hoping for friendship but preparing for the worst. While the world's top scientists studied the crashed ship, another